Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mormonish. I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Landon.
And you will see a familiar face here with us today. It's our good friend, Dr. John Lundwall. How are you today, John?
I'm doing great. Thanks.
We love it when you're
It's
on.
good to see you two again.
Yes.
Again. Yeah, let's not pretend that this isn't like our 80th episode. We love Dr. John because he's a font of knowledge, and boy, do we need him today. So it's almost the eclipse. It's almost the end of the world, isn't it? Or Jesus returns April 8th.
We're lucky to catch Dr. Lundwall because he's leaving for the eclipse here 2 days. If he'd have found these plates a day or two later, we'd have missed it. So
that's right. So
I would have astral projected. You can do that on eclipse day.
Anything's possible. Jesus is coming back. It's also possibly the end of the world as we know it. It's General Conference weekend. Like, this is a big couple days. And just when we thought we couldn't handle one more thing, we woke up this morning to the news on all social media that some artifacts have been discovered that are very, how can I say this, golden plate like. Some of the headlines on some of these podcasts are gold book found or sealed gold book from Lehi's trail found. Very interesting. So again, what did we do? What do we always do when we don't know what the heck is going on? We call Dr. Lundwall, like a bat signal, right? Help us understand this. So we're going to talk about this scenario that everybody is discussing on social media, the discovery of these very interesting golden plates.
And we gave him like 5 hours notice to put this all together. So
he's speedy. I'm telling you, it's amazing. So yeah, all kidding aside, and we're not really kidding. We hope to dig into this because it is really interesting. And as I've been reading the comments from more of the faithful Mormon side, and they seem to think there's really something here. You know, these are not the golden plates, but they're very similar, maybe more than any other artifact that we've found before. And so, of course, a lot of them are jumping right to, praise Israel. It's happened, So
they're on Lehi's trail as we read. And everyone's jumping right to, we found it. We found the proof we've been looking for.
Yeah, so I saw a post that said, post-Mormons, you better be scared now. So I don't think I'm scared, but I think I am curious. And I'm going to put my little critical thinking hat on, and we're going to delve into this with Dr. John Lundwall. So take it away. I think he has a wonderful presentation for us.
Well, I'm going to share my screen. All right. You got that?
We can see it.
All right. Look, you text me first thing this morning, Rebecca, and I watched the videos. This, by the way, is King Mosiah, a ancient Native American Israelite Jewish Nephite Lamanite priest reading from the Torah in front of his earthen mound.
Of course. What else would it be?
In Tennessee.
This is why we called you, John.
This is it.
Well,
this picture right here.
I found the proof. So look, here are the 3 videos I watched this morning. And the Golden Book, we're gonna spend some time obviously talking about it, but as I watched them, I'm gonna have a theme tonight. Look, guys, I'm not an ancient linguist, I'm not a Bible scholar. My doctorate is in comparative myth and religion, and I do run a team of people in ancient Fremont sites, mostly in Utah. These are the indigenous culture in Utah, lived approximately 300 to 1300 CE AD. And we're just going to, when I looked at this, what I saw runs into the exact same problem that we keep running into with all the apologists time and time again. So tonight's theme are going to be 2 things. When we look at something, I don't know, Rebecca, do you want to read that?
Let me unmute myself and I will read it. We're going to talk about methodologies of science require formal, measurable, repeatable, and falsifiable processes.
Right. All right. So you tell me there's a new discovery. I have one method to look at it, and that's the formal scientific method. So I am going to try to find, you know, its cultural context, its historical context, its temporal context, its geographic context, its linguistic context. That's what you do, right? It's surprising how little of that exists. Almost none. All right. There's a second methodology that we employ. Landon, do you want to read that?
Yeah, methodologies of faith require introspection and not projection.
Okay. Well, this is our theme tonight because what happens is people of faith, very often the apologists, will take their faith and project it onto the scientific data. This is Kerry Muhlestein saying, I take the gospel to be true, which is his faith, and therefore I fit all the data into that. And that's the scientific method. So he reads the scientific method, the formal, the measurable, repeatable, and falsifiable, by projecting metaphysics onto it. And this is, I'm not criticizing Muhlestein as a person. I think he's smart, educated, but he does this. And this has serious problems. And when it comes to Mormonism, I'll just say the standard of proof, because we're going to be talking about the Book of Mormon tonight and comparing it to this little golden book. The standard of proof for the Book of Mormon, you can use both these methodologies, right? You can use faith and use the archetypes in the Book of Mormon for introspection. You can look at your life based off the literary archetypes and introspect. But what the church does is they take those archetypes and they project them onto everyone else and says, you owe us 10%. We're going to interview you annually, biannually. We're going to ask about every part of your personal lives. The moment, oh, and by the way, we're the Lord's anointed. The moment you cross that line, that's no longer a methodology of faith. And everybody in that system gets to move over to the methodology of science and say, well, if you're going to do that, then I require you to show the formal, measurable, repeatable, and falsifiable aspects of the Book of Mormon, your truth claims. Okay. So we've gone over this, but as soon as I began looking at this small gold plate, I realized that what I was seeing in these videos was the second method being projected onto the first. And if you use the first method, the second method falls apart really quick. Okay. Are you following? Questions?
Absolutely. You said it way better than we thought it, but this is what we've been thinking today as we've been discussing it.
And it's amazing how much projection or how quickly everyone projects that. This just came out yesterday is the first I've heard of it. Some of these podcasts that we woke up to had 40,000 views of people going to them to see the evidence that's coming out. And everyone's jumping up and down going, we found it. And what is it we found? I don't think most people can even tell you what it is that's been found at this point.
Well, and the original podcast, which on your screen, you can see that over on the far left, it does not say it has anything to do with Mormonism or the Book of Mormon. This is a biblical, artifact that's been found. But of course, Mormons are jumping over onto that site and if you go through the comments, it's all about the Book of Mormon. They have projected that this is now some kind of evidence very similar to the Book of Mormon.
We're going to go point by point to a historical model and take that artifact and apply it to the historical model and see what we have at the end. And, these are not the droids you're looking for. Look, I'm going to begin with my expertise, and I'm just going to begin with a rumination of what we just talked about: methodologies of science, methodologies of faith. Do you recognize this location,
We
Rebecca
do.
and
You
Landon?
took us there. Yes.
Yes. I think this is very close to the location on our field trip, our first one together, where you said, the whole Book of Mormon is actually, when you compare it oral and literary, anachronism. And Landon and I looked at each other and went, and hence
Yeah.
8 podcasts later.
This is where we met, basically.
Yeah.
And I just thought I would ruminate, by saying, here, I guess, is my entry into the post-Mormon world. This is how we met, and we've developed a great friendship. But one of the things I do is I study rock art. And look, my doctorate is in comparative myth. And myth and rock art are analogous in that they are both almost impossible to interpret. So why did I do this to myself? I have no idea. But when you go out and you look at ancient rock art, what you're looking at is images from an oral tradition. These people had no writing. Okay, that does not mean they were less intelligent. They were every bit as smart and as intelligent as you or I, but they have a different epistemological framework. And what you're looking at without writing, how do you interpret it? Well, as we've talked about on your show, the oral tradition layers analogically cosmology, astrology, culture, warfare, agriculture, right? Every need that the tribe or clan requires is in some way embedded in these images. How am I going to backtrack and try to get that out of these images? Well, it's almost impossible to do. The images are almost impossible to date. Every method has been tried: carbon dating, lichen dating, spectrometry, luminescence, radiation. That every attempt has been made to date rock faces, pigments, and they all come back with mixed results. So, I mean, you can date some of the rock art, but most of it you can't. So then what do I do when I show up to these things? I wish I could take the Mormon apologist with me, because, what I do is I start with a large drink of rum, because I'm very depressed, because I have in front of me a year of research that simply walks fine lines of circumstantial evidence. But, mostly we try not to interpret. We come to these sites and we look at them and we say, let's measure them, measure the orientations, look at the cultural, what culture is doing it. If we don't know it, what style is it? What are the related tangential rock images look like? And then we go to the library and we read a hell of a lot of ethnography from later cultures that descend from these cultures, assuming, and this is a problem, assuming that the earlier cultures might have passed on some of their traditions. I'm going through all of this because I have also read, as I go through the literature, an enormous amount of people who walk up to these things and they project onto them what was never there. And in fact, there's this LDS website, Scripture Notes. It's a product. You buy this and helps you study the scriptures. You can use it, I suppose, for any text, but it's LDS for the LDS scriptures. And they have, podcasts, blogs on it. And in 2022, this, I don't know her, but this lovely woman, Patricia Kent, gave a presentation on this site entitled Anasazi Ridge Petroglyphs Testify of Jesus Christ. Now, being that I have spent years looking at thousands of images, reading thousands of pages of ethnography, this raised my eyebrow. I'm like, well, really? I really want to know. So I'm going to play a 2-minute clip Okay, we're just going to listen for a couple minutes. Is that all right?
The title of my presentation is Anasazi Ridge Petroglyphs Testify of Jesus Christ. Most of the time
Can you hear that?
when we
Yes.
think of petroglyphs and we look at petroglyphs, we don't think of Jesus Christ. But on the screen, you see 3 specific petroglyphs that are at Anasazi Valley. And each one of these represent Jesus Christ. And as we go through this, these 3 stars here represent the winter solstice. These 3 represent the summer. And these 4 represent the equinox. So if you know what their symbols are and you know their culture, it's fairly easy to interpret. On all 3, you'll notice he has a wounded foot. He has a Kacina life belt. These 2 are across his chest. This one, on the other hand, is open. It's interesting because Kacinas are spirits, and spirits don't have feet. So he really shouldn't have a Kacina life belt on. But we know that the Kacina life belt represents power over life and death. Who then, if you think about it, the only person that I know that's ever lived on the earth who was mortal yet had power over life and death was Jesus Christ.
All right. Is there a problem there with that methodology?
I'd call it sort of the Mulestein methodology, although he's a lovely person. That, she just began by looking for evidence of Jesus, in Anasazi art, and then she was able to project, and she does have some knowledge. It looks like she, knows things about the equinox and things like that, but she's able to kind of mesh it together for an outcome that she needs to have, and she wants to share with everyone.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I was going to say, I watched that and I said, oh, Jesus Christ, when she was done talking. So I can see where she came from.
I don't know her, but this is an hour-and-a-half presentation. I watched it. And she's smart, she's informed, she's been to these sites, she's read about the culture, not academically, because she's referring to them as Anasazi, and at this point they're ancestral Puebloan, not Anasazi. But and she makes just some very big errors. She dates the rock faces to 600 BC because she wants to put it in the Book of Mormon timeline. You can't do that. She says, oh, once you know the symbols, it's very easy to read these. Even if you know the symbols, it's not easy to read them. It's almost impossible to read them because what you're looking at is puns and puns of ritual, puns of cosmology, puns of culture. Oh my goodness. It's there's nothing easy about it. But then, when you go to this last move of Jesus Christ being the Kacina figure, we're no longer in responsible scholarship. And so I'm not trying to, say anything about her. I'm just saying this is a radical, irresponsible move where you are projecting your faith onto the data. Now, look, when it comes to faith, you introspect. It's there to project into your soul where you make life changes. Okay. Once you come to the data, you got to use the scientific method. And if the scientific method contradicts your faith model, then you're bound to consider both. You have to weigh that faith model as heavy as the data, scientific data. That's what a faithful person does. All right. So,
one other example really quickly. This is so funny. Landon and I went to a bookstore and there was a book about Mesoamerica and Jesus Christ. and there was a rock art figure. John's probably going to have, oh, you're pulling a Carrie, a
Pulling it out.
backyard professor.
We bought the book for John.
So a woman at the bookstore said, oh, this is Jesus. This is a picture of Jesus. And we said, okay, we need to buy this for Dr. Lundwall. And we brought it to him. He took 2 seconds to look at it. And this very nice woman had given us this whole story about how this figure is Jesus and what it represents and what it means. And John just starts laughing. He's like, did she mention the skulls hanging around his neck, or the fact that he has a axe blade over his head?
I'm trying to find the picture.
Lobster legs. I mean, John knew what it was. It was pretty much as far away from Jesus Christ as you could get. It was a head hunting figure with skulls around its neck. But again, at the bookstore and in this book, it was portrayed as an evidence of Jesus Christ. And, they had things written beside it. This represents this, just like what we just saw. So, did you find it? Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, that
Jesus. Is Jesus Christ. And John's like, what about the lobster legs?
Well, he is wearing a necklace of skulls, and that headdress is actually very common, but it's in the shape of a Toomey knife.
Yeah,
where they used to take heads.
Yeah. So sorry to interrupt, but I thought that was another good example of just, someone meaning very well and really sincerely believing it. But what she was talking about was very far from the truth.
Well, look, I mean, so I'm going to actually give one more example from Scripture Central after this slide. But here's the problem we keep running into. When you are looking at historical data or historical artifacts, it depends, but ancient history, largely, most of it is lost. And it's depressing how much. And so historians and scholars create models to try to reconstruct, right? And so we look at temporal context, dates, geographic context, places, spatial context. If we're dealing with architecture or rock art, what's the orientations? What's the exact locations? What's the surrounding geography, rivers, food sources, mountains, right? All that is relevant.
How does it interact with the sun and the eclipse?
That's right. How it interacts with the sun. Where does the sun rise on the local landscape? Where is it set? The moon, the stars. Cultural context. You have to look at life ways. How did they live? How did they eat? How did they hunt? How did they gather? How did they war? Right? Belief systems, their art, if you have them, right? This is anthropology. Material context, tools, architectures, goods, trade, archaeology. Linguistic context, DNA. Oh my gosh, look at all that you have to do. And it turns out no one scholar is a specialist in all of that, right? So as modernity has progressed, scholars have started, interlocking. And, a couple centuries ago, a scholar was a know-it-all who, that's very dangerous because, that was the nature of the time. And they would often take their basis of history, which in the West was the Bible. And, there are volumes of texts in the 16th, 17th, 18th century that show that, sure enough, the Israelites had migrated to every continent of the world, and that everyone's descendant from Noah, and everyone knows where the Noah's Ark is, right? I mean, so this is what you have to look at. And once you look at that, it becomes impossible, 99.99% improbable, to interpret that rock art as Jesus Christ. So all I'm doing, you sent me these videos of this little golden book. And so, all right, well, we're just going to apply what we know into this and apply this onto the golden book. Okay. I'm not going to talk about the Book of Mormon. I'm not going to talk about my religious faith. We're just going to look at the methodology of science. Okay. Now, I'm not discounting the methodology of faith, and I'm not discounting the Book of Mormon, right? Maybe there's some connection, right? I don't know. All I know is I'm watching these videos, and actually immediately red flags are going everywhere. So this is what we have to do. Well, for some reason, the large bulk of Mormon apologetic scholarship is just like the petroglyph interpretation. So I got just one more video. We're going to see this as a Scripture Central is a marvelous work, the greatness of the evidence. And let me play just this minute clip.
A mound is a earthen structure designed to look like a hill. Most of them are conical in shape. They come in two different types. A burial mound, where we find bodies interred, or a ceremonial mound, where there are ceremonial objects. This mound we're on right now is ceremonial, because there's been some excavation here, there's been some ground-penetrating radar, and no bodies were ever found. So this is Sauls Mound, one of the very great places to be in the mound builder culture, especially the eastern woodland horizon.
Wow.
So you recall there are two kinds of mounds, ceremonial mounds and burial mounds.
Right, yeah.
And would you like to know where in the text of the Book of Mormon mounds like this appear?
Yes, I would, because
Okay.
I don't
Let me
seem to
show you let me show you in the text how this is part of what's in the Book of Mormon.
This is the part that I was hoping to see.
Let's go to Ether, chapter 11, verse 6, okay?
6.
And this is a prophecy about great calamity in the land, great curse, and their great destruction, and bones shall become as heaps of earth upon the face of the land. You are looking at heaps of earth that contain bones, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
Um,
oh my.
so this is interpreting a mound like interpreting that petroglyph as Jesus Christ. And it's the exact same thing. The dear brother there, I think it's Magleby, is projecting his faith on the scientific data. But if we look at the temporal, geographic, cultural, linguistic, DNA context of those mounds, they have absolutely nothing to do with the model the Book of Mormon predicts. Zero. All right. Sure enough, there were tens of thousands of mounds in the Americas. Joseph Smith would have been very familiar with the mound culture, but there is no writing systems in pre-Columbian North America amongst the indigenous populations. Both the Jaredites and the Nephites are fully literate. So you need a culture that is literate, right? And so you should be able to go out there, and like ancient Rome, you should find thousands of scraps of writing, and you find nothing, right? There's no urbanization. So, hey, we're not going to go through this presentation without me showing off a couple of my photographs.
Nope, never. We would
Is that
expect
a UFO
no less.
landing strip there?
Is that
John?
a UFO? This is Monk's Mound in Cahokia. I was there last month, and I wanted to take a star shot. It's aligned. All right, orientation, spatial context. It's aligned to the cardinal directions, north, south, east, west. So I don't know if you can see my mouse. There's the North Star. There's the Big Dipper. There's Cassiopeia. Those rotate over that mound. This mound's 100 feet high, 1,000 feet long, 800 feet wide. And I brought the lights myself because in the dark, it's just a black lump in the black sky. So I had to make a UFO landing. But Cahokia is the first sign of real urbanization, or at least urbanization in North America. We have the Chaco phenomenon, but it's dated to about 1,000 to 1,300 CE AD. So centuries after the Book of Mormon timeline. Okay. And that's when real agriculture actually arrives in North America, because they're growing maize, and you need agriculture to drive urbanization. And once you have agriculture and urbanization, if you can produce enough extra food, you can create specialty classes, right? One of the questions I always get asked about the rock art is, why is it so simplistic? It's stick figures. I go down and I look at the Mayan statuary and murals, and they're fantastic. I go to ancient Egypt. I go to, ancient Rome, I see all this beautiful art, and then I look at the rock art and it's just stick figures. Why is that? Well, one, the person painting or carving the art is wearing all the hats, right? Hunting, gathering, farming, rituals, religion, trading, warfare. When you wear all the hats, you can't specialize as an artist. When you get an artist class, almost always that means you have urbanization and agriculture. Okay? Because now you can feed people to do only art. Makes sense?
Yep.
Turns out, however, even those oral hunter-gatherer societies did specialize in some arts, and they became extremely sophisticated. That was their ritual regalia, their feather headdresses, their masks, their tattoos. Almost all of this does not survive. But whenever we find it, we go, holy crap, that's amazing, right? So they did specialize in some art, but the rock art, most of the time is pretty rudimentary. Well, look, the Book of Mormon gives us all kinds of tags of what we should find. We should find urbanization, agriculture, massive population demographics, and full literacy. Do we find that in North America? No, we don't. Zero. Not in the timeline, right? Not in the proper timeline. And so this is why the Mesoamerican scholars, apologists, reject the Heartland model. The Heartlanders do have one great point, and that is the early prophets were Heartlanders. That's a pretty good point.
It's pretty good. And Zelf is there. It's hard to get around Zelf.
It's
He's
hard to
right
get
there.
around Zelf. So they have some excellent points, but it turns out when you go to Mesoamerica, you have urbanization, agriculture, writing, but none of that applies to the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon has a theology where divinity is completely decoupled from nature. And you never find that in any of the Americas. And the only way you get divinity completely decoupled from nature is by accessing divinity through literacy, through texts. And they're not doing that. Mayan writing, Zapotec writing, the writing in Mesoamerica serves the oral tradition. The religion of the Bible comes from a literate tradition. Okay, we talked about this on your podcast. So once you go down there and look at it, if you call this Nephite Lamanite, it's just like calling those petroglyphs Jesus Christ. It is a completely errant. Okay, following? I promise you, we're about to get to this gold
Trying
book.
to figure out where that goes to the gold book. Yep.
No, I love it. And you were just down there, weren't you, John? So
I was. In fact,
saw everything.
Here's Monk's Mound, and I'm behind it because there's a state highway there, and there's Orion and Sirius and the Pleiades. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that. It's a pink dot. That's the Orion Nebula. I was able to capture that on my camera. That's pretty awesome.
That is
See
pretty
the glow
awesome.
in the background, John? Is that an LDS temple?
Oh, do not get us started. Looking at you, Lone Mountain.
That glow in the background is actually St. Louis. That's the light pollution of a city. And I actually have to adjust my camera settings and I'm using actually a light pollution filter because in order to get the stars, I need a long exposure, but then the light pollution washes everything out. Right. So you have to do things to get these shots. All right. Here are the mounds. And just as cultural context, here's one mound, Mound 72. This is a burial mound. This is exactly what Scripture Central was talking about. Here we got bones in hills. And this mound was excavated. About 2/3 of it was excavated. And they found burial pits. One of them had 53 female skeletons laid together in 2 layers with 4 male skeletons with their heads and hands removed on top of them. This was a human sacrificial pit. Okay, that's important to know.
Yeah, exactly what we expect to find in the Nephites.
That's right. So first off, it's dating to about 1300. CE, and they're growing maize, and there's human sacrifice associated with it. Wherever maize goes, there tends to be some form of sacrifice, and very often it's human sacrifice because maize is a religion, right? I understand that people think it's a crop, but as soon as maize was domesticated, a religion was invented, and wherever maize went, the religion of maize went with it. And a lot of people, including archaeologists, forget that fact. All right, so now we're back to the Gold Book. Let's take what we've looked at, methodologies of science, methodologies of faith, and let's dig into this. So there's this little gold book. And, actually, I don't get a leaf count. We're going to talk about it. But most of the data of this book is absent. So that's my first red flag. But here it is. It's called The Seeds of Zadok. The commentators on Shabbat Night Live, right? We're going to talk about that and talk about them. Talked about the Book of the Zadokim. Zadokim is a title meaning righteous. It was applied to righteous people in the Hebrew traditions, such as the prophets. They're comparing this to the Book of Zadok or Zakok. And they think that's what this is. So here it is.
This is that gold book, this little tiny.
Yes, this is it. All right.
This looks like earrings almost.
I'd wear them. They're cute.
Let's just go. I mean, look, so I'm watching these videos. The one on the Shabbat YouTube channel and the Stick of Joseph LDS channel. And there was another one you sent me, and I only watched the first couple minutes of it because I couldn't.
Yeah, that was David Alexander. He also put up some information about this because it's big news in the faithful community.
The Stick of Joseph this evening had over 50,000 views in less than a day.
Yeah. So
it is blowing up on the Mormon verse. Okay. I look at it, and so I just want to know. We've gone over, episode 3 with you. We talked about ancient golden plates in Scripture Central. So let's just apply our temporal, geographic, cultural, linguistic context to what we know about it. So what do we know about it? Well, we're told that it dates to the 2nd century. We have no confirmation. And so the first thing I do is I get on Google and I say, okay, I need to know what has been said about this little golden artifact, who's looked at it, any officials, government, archaeologists, anyone. And I get on Google. Did you guys Google?
We tried.
Yeah, I found, what did you find?
Nothing.
Zero.
Nothing. No, it seems like no one with an authoritative background in that scholarship has even begun to dig into this at all. It seems to be a faith-based.
No one's even seen it.
A faith-based analysis is what I kind of took it, but we couldn't find it anywhere.
Zero. I could not find anything on any of my searches. I used more than Google. I used Bing. I used a hat. I could not find anything, no one's even seen it except this one podcast. Okay. All right, guys, I've got a control panel of controls. And in my top left corner, right at the beginning, I got a red light flashing. This is a problem, right? There's no information about it anywhere on the internet that I can find. And maybe there is, but you know what? If this thing's legit, if they actually found an artifact like this, it would be in the news. It would be in the archaeology news. It might be on, the Smithsonian. I actually read different archaeological reports, academia edu. I follow different people. It would be in all of those. It's not in any of those. And I couldn't find it on Google. So here's my first blinking red light. That's not right. Something is off. Okay. Well, how big is it? Well, you see the guy's finger and thumb in this picture, but he gives us no measurements. Why is it that these people never measure or count the plates or anything, right? There's no physical description other than it's about the size of, my hand. Well, I can tell it's about 2 by 2 inches,
Yeah.
maybe 2 by 4 inches when it's open, about the size of a credit card. Okay. Now everyone's saying this is proof of the Book of Mormon. Well, we went over this. In order to have proof of the Book of Mormon, what do we need? We need not just any writing on gold plates. We need historical writing on gold plates. We need biblical writing on gold plates. We need Isaiah quoted on gold plates. We need Exodus quoted on gold plates. So I got another blinking red light. Content, pictures and text. It's mostly pictures. Every screenshot I saw of it, we have a little text here running along, and then there's an image. This actually comports with a lot of these ancient artifacts. So, that neither argues for or against its authenticity. But again, what's this have to do with the Book of Mormon? Again, we need to find volumes of text written on plates, brass or gold, because in the Lehi, Nephi took brass plates, which had, do you remember what was on the brass plates?
The first 5 books of the Old Testament.
First 5 books of Moses, right? The entire genealogy of Lehi, the entire history of the Jews from the beginning to the reign of Zedekiah, right?
Must have had Isaiah on it.
It must have had Isaiah
Somewhere,
on it,
yes.
and Zenos, because that's apparently where we get the allegory of the olive tree. So it has
Harold
lost books on it. All this has to fit on a portable stack of brass plates. Well, I have a separate control panel, and all the lights are blinking on that one.
Are you a robot, John?
fact-
I feel like I have to ask you.
In fact, that control panel is just Hal looking at me saying, "Don't look behind the curtain, Dave." That's a reference. All right. Language. They say it's Paleo Hebrew intermixed with other languages. All right. I don't read Paleo Hebrew. I want to see a translation of it. Paleo Hebrew was the language of the Israelites in the first temple period. When they're in Babylon, they pick up basically the square Hebrew alphabet and Aramaic, and which eventually takes over the culture. But Paleo Hebrew survives till about the 2nd century CE, which is where they date this. And they're dating that because something on there seems to indicate this is from the post-Second Temple period. The Romans sacked the temple again, 70 CE or thereabouts. So this is supposedly dated to the 2nd century. All right, Paleo Hebrew. That's
second century would be 800 years after Lehi left Jerusalem.
Yes. Right. So temporal context. What's our date? Between 1 and 200 AD, 700-800 years after Lehi. What am I looking at? What changes in 700 and 800 years?
Can I make a prediction? I predict that by tomorrow, there will be podcasts out where they are comparing the writings in this artifact to Reformed Egyptian. I predict some kind of a graph or a schematic somewhere where they're trying to compare it.
Well, that's the other thing is it's Paleo Hebrew intermixed with Aramaic. They said there were other languages. Well, that's another. I've got another red dot blinking on my dashboard. What do you mean? What people are picking and choosing? What elements? What language is it? In order to translate this ancient language, you you really have to know Hebrew and Paleo Hebrew. So I need a linguistic scholar to look at it. And the people telling me this are not that. And so when you're telling me there's a mix of languages on it, that's another red blinking dot. It's not that that's impossible. There could be elements of different languages, but it's another blinking light. Yes.
Or you could use a rock and a hat.
Or you could use a rock and a hat. This is exactly what, Charles Anton, when he was shown the characters from the gold plates, said, well, kind of maybe Chaldean or Syriac or Egyptian or Greek. There's elements of all of that in there. And of course, to Anton, that meant, oh, okay, this is absurd.
Right.
Right.
But to the rest of them, it was saying, you're saying there's a chance. But this artifact has been translated. As I understand it, they talked about it in the video that the person who found it did have a team that tried to translate it. Is that how you understood it?
Right. The seed there's something about the seed.
Yeah, and it seemed to be about the Exodus. It was like a familiar story. Like, what would be the odds that you would find that
Yeah, I read that. I should have wrote that down.
Artifact.
Yeah, and it was a team, but they never said who on the team had any kind of training, where they were able, how they were able to read this. Did they use Google Translate? Did they use
They said it took a month. They said the team took a month, and they could tell from some of the drawings, the menorah, the palm leaf, Jacob's ladder, that it was about the Exodus.
Well, we're going to get into this, but the person making these claims, sitting on that podcast, I've already forgotten it. Shabbat Night Live.
Yeah.
Miles Jones, I think. Dr. Miles Jones.
Miles Jones.
He is embroiled in some we'll talk about it. He's embroiled in some controversies. He's a he's a language scholar of modern languages, not of ancient Hebrew, Paleo Hebrew, and he's made some translations of ancient artifacts that the Hebrew and Paleo Hebrew scholars have resoundingly rejected. And so, once again, I got another blinking red light on my control board. Of course, where is this thing? You mentioned Landon. No one's seen it. No one has seen it except these people. And if you listen to it, we know it's in the black market. And that's not unusual. There is a very robust black market of antiquities in the Middle East. But here's the problem with that. There are actual antiquities in the black market in the Middle East, and there are tons of forgeries and fakes in the black market. And some of them are quite sophisticated. So when where is this thing? Who's had it? Who's been, okay, it's deep in the black market. That's just another red light blinking on my control board. Okay, be very cautious.
It came from a construction site, supposedly, in Saudi Arabia. And the guys who showed up with it also had lead books. Mm-hmm. Books written on lead were also in the bag that they showed them the gold plates with.
Well, I think the lead plates are part of the Jordan lead tablets.
That's what Dan McClellan was when we were texting with him, because of course we're trying to run it past everyone we know who has great knowledge in this arena, and he did refer us to the 2011 those lead plates that were a hoax.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, interesting. This is very cloak and dagger. Dr. Jones was alerted by someone that there was a person that wanted to meet with him, and 6 o'clock in the morning they meet, and this person has a bag and pulls this out of it. And, of course they take pictures, but, that's all we have.
It's not it's not unheard of, but it's just another problem. And so far, I've got an artifact that no one's seen. It's in the black market. No one's measured. No one's translated other than this group. who
We don't know their credentials for
Credentials,
translating. Yeah.
yeah. So there's a lot of problems here. The other issue is the text on it is embossed. So on here, you see the text on the right side of this image. That's actually the text on the other side. It's poking through the back
okay.
side, right? So it's embossed and not engraved. It's embossed on one side. So,
John, I think we distracted you about the textual density.
oh, yeah. Also, I mean, again, I don't have a translation, but I'm just looking. This row of characters is going to be a few words. Here's several rows of characters. It's going to be several words. But if I look at the textual density, I just by looking at it, I can tell I'm probably at 1 word per square inch, right? We're going to go over that. I'm going to show the slides I showed. Remember, the Book of Mormon requires how many words per square inch?
Oh my
I mean,
goodness.
this requires certain calculations,
Right.
but we're going to talk about that. So,
Can I say one thing about embossing before we leave that? We had talked to our friend Rod Osborne, and he lived in China for a long time. He's in the FBI or CIA. I can never remember. It's too clandestine.
Yeah,
He
FBI.
mentioned to us that, there's a practice there where they will take metal, or did you say lead, Landon? I think, or
He said
something,
metal
some
plates and
material that's fabricated, and they will emboss by pressing, characters into it. Then they'll go and bury it for a month, a couple months. And when they take it out, it looks ancient, it looks old, it's embossed, and they're able to sell it. So this is not unheard of, this practice where something is fraudulent.
oh my goodness, if you travel just a little bit, you run into this problem. When I was in India, I had really, I mean, I had a vendor trying to sell me an ancient metal statue of Shiva, and it was dirty and caked and rusted, and obviously manufactured in that way. I mean, you could tell that he had made it that way. Also, the day before, I had seen the identical statue, brand new. So he had taken it and he had buried it and he had done whatever he had done. And then he was trying to sell it for 10 times the price. And I'm like, well, actually, if that were real, you should be selling it for 1,000 times the price.
It's very Mark Hoffman-esque. And that was something our friend Rod brought up too. Just Mark Hoffman could do this. He'd take pages out of old books, that matched the era. He was trying to fabricate a letter. He would use those. He had an ink aging process. He was very good at it. People are very good at this.
Oh, yeah. No, there are really good fakes. I also have to say, when I was in Leventa, I can't remember. I think it's Leventa or Tres Zapates. We were looking for the Olmec Museum, outdoor Olmec Museum in Mexico, and we were lost, and we were in a rental car, and we rolled down the window and asked this kid walking by, "Do you know where the museum is?" And he just hopped right into our car and said, "Oh, I'll show you. Go down this road." And so we started driving and he said, "Okay, go down this road." And we're leaving town. We're like, I don't think this is the way to the museum. And so we left town for a while and we came to this rural farm and we're like, okay, this isn't the museum. He said, "Oh no, I've got something better than the museum." And he took us to his parents' chicken coop. And he charged us, I don't know, 10 pesos to see inside the chicken coop. So this was his stick. So we just spent an hour trying to find the museum, and we end up at a chicken coop in rural Tres Zapates, and he unlocks the chicken coop, opens it up, and you know what was in the chicken coop? Gorgeous Olmec statues that his father had just dug up while plowing the fields. And we eventually did make our way to the museum. And we were like, you know what? Some of the statues in that chicken coop are more impressive than anything in this museum. So, it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed picture. You can get authentic stuff. people are often very poor in these areas, and they will try to sell anything. I've been offered artifacts. I have no idea if they're real or not real, but pretty much every country where I'm looking at an ancient site, I at least get offered something from someone who claims it to be ancient. And I think the vast majority of it is just not. I mean, it's just, that's how they make their living. Some of it, I'm like, that's a pretty good fake if it's a fake. So.
And that's another red flag here. This guy just got off the plane, goes to the hotel, and this woman
Within
says, "I
4
want to introduce
hours.
you," and all of a sudden, here's a man with plates ready to sell them to him.
Right.
Yep. Actually, the whole narrative is a problem.
Yeah.
And the whole context is a problem. So I there's very, very little we know about this. That's a problem. So here we have the stick of Joseph. And I have to say, I don't know the guy on the left. He seems super nice. He's one of the runners. Oh my goodness, what's his name? Do you know his name?
A Paul brother.
Yeah.
Is it Hayden? Or I've been in that studio.
I think it's Hayden.
Yeah. They are very nice. They're super nice.
Super nice. Super great. I have nothing bad to say about them. They're very excited about this discovery. The guy on the right, I know personally. He's a good friend of mine, Dave Butler. He's super smart. And so I like both these guys, but I love the guy on the right, and he's all in on this. So, after this podcast, I'm going to have to email him and say, "Hey, watch my podcast," and then email me back and tell me what you think. All right. I am going to play, however, this is kind of low because his partner, the Stick of Joseph's partner, is on the phone, and they're so excited about this.
Just texted me, said, "Bro,
can you hear that?
Watch this. I cannot wait to see the look on people's faces when more and more of this starts coming out."
It's crazy.
Yo, Jack, we are recording right now.
You are on the air.
You are on the air.
Bro, I literally just finished watching that Golden Book video, bro.
Dude, when you see this video that we've been recording, the other things that we've pointed out and learned as we've been talking through this, it is absolutely insane. How about the fact that he's like, the lead plates are where they wrote the long version of it all because it was more available and easy, and they only wrote the most precious things of a summarized version on gold.
I am just looking so forward to when these things keep coming out, bro, and the Lord keeps bringing these things forth, and then we just talk to people that have. I'm so excited for when these things keep happening, bro, and then we don't do the whole "I told you so" to people, but we just show it to them and then just stare them in the eye.
You just keep going.
Yep. All right. Did you hear that? That was kind of hard to hear.
Yeah, no. And especially when they said they are not going to do the "I told you so" to people. And of course, we are the people that would be said to, so they're being very kind about it, but they're very excited about this evidence. They're loving it. I
can say with 95% probability, this is not what they think it is.
I know.
So they're very excited. This is what's spreading out in the Mormon verse. This guy, Dave Butler, again, personal friend of mine. He's very smart. He taught himself Hebrew, taught himself biblical Greek. He's apparently been on this podcast. I didn't know this. Look, I saw this first time this morning when you texted me, Rebecca.
I love to wake people up with just, "Oh my gosh, the world's going to hell. Hurry, wake up, John." I actually said, "Bat signal. We need John Lundwall."
All right, let's just review some of the data that we've already gone over on your show. Scripture Central, again, they're using the methodology that interprets petroglyphs as Jesus. They take gold plates, pretty much anywhere, any geographic context, any time, any temporal context, any writing, any linguistic context. Hey, we got writing on gold. This shows the authenticity of the Book of Mormon. You can't do that. This is a completely inappropriate methodology. So we went over this: Darius gold plates, Etruscan gold book, Pergi gold tablets. These are the top 3 examples they give on Scripture Central as to writing on gold. And we showed that they're all ritual tablets. What's being performed on these tablets are rituals. In fact, there's writing on gold, copper, silver, bronze, brass, lead. In every example I have found in a Near Eastern context, writing on gold is ritual. They're using it alchemically to bind themselves to the heavenly realm through a ritual, right? Dedicatory rituals, prayer rituals. So when I see this little 2-inch by 2-inch gold book with writing on it, apparently 2nd century CE, it is, it's in Saudi Arabia. Apparently, we don't have provenance. It's in the black market. My first thing is it's most likely it's going to be, if it's authentic, a ritual. So now Butler and Stick of Joseph say it has temple motifs on it. That actually comports with what you might expect to find. And of course, if it's a fake, the people know what you would expect to find. So that's exactly what they're going to create. Right. So, but how does this prove the Book of Mormon? Because I watched that entire thing, and I understand they're arguing people leaving Jerusalem after the fall of the temple, and here are gold plates with precious things about the temple on it. But there's no translation. There's no provenance, no description. They're looking at the iconography and saying, oh, look, there's a menorah, there's a tree, there's grapevines, there's a pillar, which is probably the temple. This is like interpreting rock art. You got to be very cautious to walk down that road. Also, words per square inch. All these examples have very low, 1 to 3, 1 to 4 words per square inch. This becomes a real problem when you're arguing the brass plates or the gold plates. In fact, this is a death blow. This isn't a problem. This is an insurmountable problem.
And this is 800 years later. So this is
yes,
with stronger technology or much later technology, and they're still at 1 word per square inch. They're not writing texts that could completely be the Old Testament or what's the Book of Mormon. And really, this is nothing new from what you just showed us, because the description pretty much matches those Etruscan plates. Couple plates, 2 by 2 inches with some gold rings around them.
Yep. It's actually a pretty good fake, which is what I'm going to call it. So I would expect exactly something like this. And just to remind your audience of our previous discussion, we have a description of the gold plate, 6 by 8 inches, half to 2/3 were sealed. There are 335,000 words of text on the plates, including the 116 lost manuscript pages. If the plates are 1 millimeter thick, right, and we have accounts, yeah, sure, we have accounts that they rustled like parchment, but we also have accounts that they were as thick as glass. In a couple accounts, they were 1/8 of an inch thick. That's much thicker than 1 millimeter. Okay. So again, if I'm using 1 millimeter, that gives us 50 plates, 80 square inches of writing surface, 4,000 square inches. That's 84 words per square inch. If I use 3 words per square inch, we would need 1,400 plates. Okay. So even Jerry Grover has argued that you could make Tumbaga plates between 300 and 600 plates. in a 2 or 3 inch stack that composes the Book of Mormon. Again, this is interpreting petroglyphs as Jesus. You've got to show me cultural, temporal, linguistic context. Where in the Americas do you find writing on Timbaga? Nowhere. Zero.
And these are not Timbaga plates, correct?
No, this is gold. It's gold foil. And anyway, all the examples I just showed are incredible. I mean, it's more than problematic. It shows the description of the gold plates versus the content of the gold plates is so improbable. You know, we're at a 0.001% probability. Bigfoot building the pyramids is a higher probability. So this is a death blow. This is a real problem. And you can invent all the Timbaga plates you want, but you got to show it in a cultural archaeological context. Where are they in the ancient pre-Columbian New World? Zero. The only gold plates we find in Mesoamerica, again, they date 900 to 1200 CE, those golden discs in the cenote at Chichen Itza. And guess what? They're ritual tablets, right? Same thing. All right. So just reviewing that, I've got several blinking red lights on my dashboard, but then here comes the real big problems of these videos. These two guys, Miles Jones and the other guy is Patrick. I forget his last name. Yes, they're led to a room in a hotel, and they're shown this golden book, and then they're shown these lead plates. And the lead plates they've photographed, and the lead plates have corrosion on it. And of course, they take out baby wipes to wipe out. I'm going
right
no,
there.
Stop!
Yeah.
Don't.
Right there. A scientist, a true expert in archaeology, even like a first-year archaeology student would know that you don't do that with the chemicals on baby wipes.
No, you don't. So I'm pouring myself some water. So listening to the tell of it is difficult, but the lead plates are part of a cache of lead tablets that have been discussed. The Jordan lead codices, or the Jordanian codices, are a collection of codices allegedly found in a cave in Jordan and first publicized in March of 2011. A number of scholars in a November 2012 regional BBC News investigation initially pronounced them fakes. As of 2017, both the Israeli Antiquities Authority and the Jordanian Archaeological Department still officially regard them as forgeries. And in fact, when you sent this to me, one of the first things I said, Rebecca, is you really need a linguist and a Bible scholar to weigh in on this.
I said, I've got one.
Yes, you did. You said, I'll text Dan. I'm like, well, of course you will, Rebecca, because you're Rebecca.
I'm such a busybody. I just text anybody and hope
you know all these people. Well, you showed me a tweet or a message that Dan had posted first thing in the morning. He was right on top of this.
He was right there.
So do you want to read that?
Yeah, this is from Dan McClellan. If you're not familiar with his incredible biblical scholarship, you need to subscribe to everything he puts out. He's amazing. And he said, folks, whomever is responsible for the forgeries known as the Jordan lead codices that we just talked about is back. But this time they learned how to include some actual Hebrew in their forgeries. Here are some screenshots from the, whatever it's called, that
YT YouTube video.
Oh,
YouTube.
Okay. I thought they were saying the new. Here are some screenshots from the video linked below that presents these forgeries as actual ancient artifacts. And this was a post Dan made, but we also did contact him personally, and he did reiterate that and sent us some more information. So, yep, he links them together like they could be related, these Jordan lead codices and this new discovery.
Well, the new Golden Book next to the lead tablets that have a long argument of their inauthenticity is a real problem. I don't have one blinking red light on my dashboard. I now have 5 additional ones.
You're
Good grief,
lit up.
I got a lot of blinking red lights going off.
You're a Christmas tree, John.
I still have Hal over here telling me don't look behind the curtain, Dave. So there are to me, this is where the entire story starts falling. I mean, this is a huge problem. And the reason why they think these fakes is because they've looked at the text on them and it's a hodgepodge, but they have found on, some of the text is a copy of text that has been found in Saudi Arabia on stones. So the forgers are looking at other ancient artifacts and say, we're going to copy that text onto this tablet. But it's not copied in the context of the tablet, right? They're just copying from one source into another source and from another source. And so specialists look at it and say, yeah, guys, it's sophisticated, but this is a fake. This is a forgery. It's not what you think it is. So after that, I'm looking at who I'm watching. And this is the Shabbat Night Live with Dr. Miles Jones. Again, I've never watched this show. I am not going to personally attack these people at all. But at looking at Shabbat Night Live, it appears to be a sort of evangelical Christian YouTube channel with a really hard Hebrew bent to it. And what is shown on that show, I mean, they have found beyond all argument the Ark of Noah, the Ark of the Covenant, the blood of Jesus, the bones of the giants of the Nephilim. These are the episodes on this show.
So you're saying it's Shabbat Central. Sorry, it's snarky.
It's a very sophisticated version of something like Word Radio. It's believers getting together and talking about Christian folklore using biblical studies and archaeology. But again, they're not using the methodology of faith for introspection. They're using it for projection. They're projecting their faith on all the archaeology and saying, hey, here is the life of Moses right here. Literally, here's the blood of Jesus, and we've tested it, and it doesn't have, it's from a virgin.
You can test that?
Because it has no father's DNA in it. It only has the mother's DNA in it. Yeah.
Well, then maybe Jesus was female. I mean, how does that prove anything?
So again, it's just another red light flashing on my dashboard. This is not the platform I want to see this discovery on. Okay? This is the Christian version of Ancient Aliens. I like Ancient Aliens. I like watching it. Hey, who did the reptilian race brainwash this week? It's fun, right? But this is not what I should be watching. Okay?
This is not coming from an archaeological institution of Saudi Arabia. This is not coming from a renowned university.
Or government
coming
entity.
From Christian apologists who have found this and interpreted it themselves, who don't have the plates. They're calling them in and getting pictures sent to them from some unknown source. I almost predict that these plates are going to disappear before they ever show up anywhere.
That sounds familiar. Plates disappearing. Where have I heard that before?
Excuse me. Before you progress any further, we need the artifact.
Yeah.
Right? Because of all the fudgery that's happening around them, you need the artifact. And I predict you're never going to get it. All right. So the guy making the announcement on this podcast, Dr. Miles Jones, he's associated with a Rude Awakening. Again, it's a Christian ministry, highly influenced with sort of a Hebraic Messiah bent to it. He's associated with Living Passages. That's a Christian tour group. And we're going to talk about that real quick, but you can go on tours and literally walk in the footsteps of Moses because they have found every spot that Moses went to according to the Bible. Okay. They know where the rock is, that the water came out. They know where, I mean, every step. They know where the tabernacle was first, the tent tabernacle was first created. And, you know, when I read that on Living Passages, again, I got 10 more red lights blinking. I mean, oh, shit.
Yeah.
And then I look up the biography of Miles Jones. Again, don't know him. I'm personally, I have nothing to say about him, but he's written a book, Writing of God, Secret of the Real Mount Sinai. And what I'm told is if you read it, you will find out these things. One, proof that ancient Hebrew was the original language, origin of all the other languages. Where have we heard that before?
Sounds like the pure Adamic language.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've
Not
heard
laughing
people say
at
that
Dr. Jones.
in the
I'm
comments.
laughing
Yeah.
at what I'm reading. That's 5 more red lights blinking on my control panel. Evidence that Torah compliance is the key fast track to success in every endeavor. Oh my God. Oh, so there's a Torah compliance code that is a prosperity gospel.
Mhm.
And if I just follow his book and he has a lecture series that you buy and a tour that you go on that you buy, I too can have success in every endeavor. Well, you know, I haven't read his book, so I need to confess that, but I can't get past point 2 before I'm no. This guy's a problem. 3,
Well,
the long hidden Hebrew Gospels, which shatters religious traditions. The Gospels were first written in Hebrew, from which Greek translations and editions were made. Wow. What a claim.
Yeah.
That is akin to knowing where the Ark of the Covenant is, filled with the bones of the Nephilim. So, anyway, this guy has all kinds of red flags attached to him. The podcast has all kinds of red flags attached to it. I can't find the description of this anywhere else in my searches. I don't have to go any further to know that this is junk.
Well, and I also should point out, I believe if I understood correctly, he has written a book about this artifact, the golden plates, that's going to come out very quickly. Do you remember, Landon? Like within a week.
Yeah, I thought you said
so
it was
suddenly there's the discovery, and then suddenly here's my book. That's interesting.
I really like this part of Dr. Jones's biography. He uses the rock art in Saudi Arabia to show the journey of Moses. Now, wait, we started this podcast by saying, oh, wait, you can't say that's Jesus, right? You need to know all kinds of context, and that is almost impossible. This culture is, mid-second millennium BCE. He's showing the rock art, say, hey, it's not Jesus, it's Moses. And also the first alphabetic writing was revealed to Moses at Sinai. I mean, red flag, red light blinking. This is not, none of this is scientific method, falsifiable, provable. This is largely junk. So Yeah, that's a real problem. And then in 2007, there was a controversy. Bob Cornuke arguing over a stone called the Moses stone that had an ancient inscription on it. Again, every scholar that looked at it said it was a fake. But come to find out, the inscription was translated by Miles Jones. And he insists that it's real, while everyone else says, no, you've got an incorrect translation. You're not even in the right language. And this stone, which I couldn't find a picture of, is a clear forgery. So the officials have clearly stated it's a forgery. Dr. Miles is embroiled in this controversy as the translator of the ancient text. So here we have a artifact where we have no information on it, no provenance on it. It comes out on a highly suspect YouTube platform that's talking about giants and arcs and the blood of Jesus. I mean, it's ancient alien stuff. And the guy who is producing it is already embroiled in claims that the scholars are saying you're nuts, right? And he's taking people out and showing them petroglyphs and saying, oh, this is the story of Moses. Again, the probability of that is extremely, extremely, extremely low. So, the way I see it is, it turns out, I think this gold little booklet is probably very closely analogous to the gold plates of the Book of Mormon, but not in the way they want it to be.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Look, I'm not arguing from the methodology of faith. They extracted my income for years. I get to argue from the methodology of science, and that's a death blow to the truth claims to the Book of Mormon. There's no cultural context, linguistic context, DNA context, archaeological, anthropological, linguistic. You don't find anything. Not in North America. You don't find the correct things in Central America. You don't find anything that you need in South America. This is a huge bust. Furthermore, the text itself is post-Reformation Christianity. The theology is post-Reformation Christianity. The divinity in the Book of Mormon is decoupled from nature. You don't get that in any culture, pre-Columbian Americas. Death blow, anachronism. You don't get around that. The standard of proof for the Book of Mormon is not Moroni's promise. Or actually, you could use Moroni's promise. Show me the scientific data from that promise, right? So it's a real problem. But the other problem is we run into, surprisingly, the same problems of this little gold booklet. We don't have it. No one's seen it. We have descriptions, but we have a characters document that some people have translated, but no linguist would ever accept it. We have apologists who are projecting instead of introspecting, and they are fudging the data, finding Jesus in the petroglyphs and Nephites in the mounds. And the problem with that, the problem with that is, when you do that, you are stripping the traditions of the indigenous people that created those petroglyphs and made those mounds. So really, you got to be really careful when you do that. So I think this fine is going to be a huge bust. But in the end, it's probably not going to show up. And so this will enter Mormon folklore, right? We're not going to get any confirmation. And so what we're going to get is just what we've gotten. Hey, look, here's a gold tablet. It's got temple motifs on it from people fleeing Jerusalem along the Lehite Trail. This proves the veracity of the Book of Mormon. No, it does not. Actually, it has nothing to do with what the Book of Mormon is saying. So, questions, thoughts?
I think it's interesting that Book of Mormon Central has not jumped on this and weighed in on this, because previously, I think they've changed it, but their sort of mission statement used to be, we will do the things that the church can't, meaning some more risky scholarship, that promotes faith. And I think in this case, they even look at this, and Landon and I talked about this earlier. They look at this and perhaps see it as extraordinarily risky. I think they do recognize the kinds of things that you're saying, John. What do you think, Landon?
Yeah, I think what John's saying is, if somebody of dubious character shows up and with some gold plates that was given to them by someone we don't know, and is then translated into a text that makes us feel good by a group that has never, that's a tight-knit group that is the only people who've ever seen these, and they can't produce the document, that we should all pray about it, and we'll find out that it's a true artifact, and we should start a religion based on it.
Wow. There it is. That's a short right there.
That's exactly what I was saying.
When you sent this to me this morning and I saw this, because I'd listened to John and I went to all of our episodes. Yeah. The first thing I said is, this is a fake. I said, I went to all the things that he taught us. Yep. And I started going through them one at a time. What's the provenance? Who did this? How big are they? Where'd they come from? How old are they? Are they in the right context? Are they in the right place? Oh, it's so small it can't handle anything but a ritual. This can't be a complete text. So even if it is what it claims to be, it's a ritual, just like we saw in all of his other things. So I want to thank you, John, because I was able to, right from the start, look at this and say, this has nothing to do with the Book of Mormon, because of the skills that you taught us on the podcast.
Well, good.
You're a great teacher. And not only did you teach us, I don't know, millions. I wish Mormonish had millions of views, but quite a number of people, I think. And I think one of the things I learned from this especially is the idea of projection of your own faith and beliefs onto an actual artifact, because that happens all the time. And just to be aware of that, I think once you start looking for that, you will see that in places that you don't even expect to see it. So that's one of my big takeaways from this, is the projection. And obviously, just like the wonderful woman we met in that bookstore, she was projecting on that picture. She wasn't trying to do harm. She wasn't trying to do anything wrong. She really believed it. But as a critical thinker, we need to look at it and understand the projection aspect of it. And then we can make our own decisions on its veracity.
It's a very human thing to do. People project their ideology. I mean, this happens through all of human history. So I just, it's quite frankly what Scripture Central is doing in its videos. It is. And so you have to, it's like the Nahum inscription in Yemen. Okay. So Nechem, it's where the trail turns east. There's a funerary stela with the name Ishmael. Okay. How many ways are there to interpret that? You're applying the Book of Mormon lens onto it. Actually, it is still in the wrong place, wrong side of the mountains. Dan Vogel did a great thing of 3 days outside of Jerusalem. They're not going to be anywhere
Wow.
close where they need to be,
Awesome. That was
according to the
gorgeous.
map.
Yep.
And I mean, so there's geographic problems, there's topographic problems, there's linguistic problems with the Sabian script, and even given all that, I need to find that in the New World. Why is it that all the proof for the Book of Mormon is still in Saudi Arabia and Yemen, and we find zero in the Americas? I need to find whatever's on this little golden book. It needs to be on plates, statuary, murals, pottery, textiles, bone, shell in the New World. They would bring it over with them. I find zero. Zero. You don't get around that. That's not a problem. That is, that's a death blow. And the people who are walking around saying, we are the Lord's anointed, you are duty bound to address that. And the way they address it is finding Jesus in a petroglyph. And that is wrong.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway,
I think
that's
that
my
is the
2
problem.
cents.
They don't, upper leadership, they don't correct these things. Like Nahum is considered the strongest evidence of the Book of Mormon, and everything you just detailed very quickly there. And there's more, but no one, they just let that kind of slide, because it does promote faith, all these things. And so I see this gold book going the same way. I'm sure that we'll be sent pictures of this from faithful family members. I'm sure this will, like you said, be in the folklore. And the only thing we can do then is very nicely say, you know what, watch this video with Dr. John Lundwall. But I guarantee
With Rebecca and Landon.
That's right. I guarantee this is going to come back as people saying, did you hear? Did you hear? I know it's going to come back like that. And part of doing this podcast so quickly, John put this together so fast so we could get it out, is just think critically, just please look at it for a second and don't jump into it. There are real problems with it. It doesn't mean what you think.
And it was amazing to me how quickly apologists jumped on John Lundwall for the things that he taught to correct those things that he said, or that they interpreted as because they were contrary to what they're teaching. They jumped right on those. Are they going to do the same thing on this and jump right on it and say, hold up, guys, we don't know a date, we don't know a location, we haven't seen these, they haven't been substantiated, they're just rumors at this point. And even if it was, and I think you gave a 5% chance that it possibly could be an artifact, even if it is, it has nothing to do with the Book of Mormon.
Correct. Yeah, that's the bottom line.
Look, truth really is my motivator. If they find writing on Tubaga plates that detail a history in the Americas, I'll be the first person to show up on your podcast and say, Rebecca and Landon.
Yep.
Oh shit. But they found, they found records of a history. And look, it even mentions Lamanites and Nephites on Tubaga. Oh, wait a second. It's right next to these lead tablets. It might be a fake, but they found, I will be the first to say, hey, here's where the data leads us. But alas, here's the problem. In order to find that, you got to find the ecosystem that created that, right? All that the text describes, you're never going to find it. If you haven't found it now, you're not going to find it. So there you have it.
There you have it. Go ahead, Landon.
Oh, I was just going to say thanks, John, to jump on this so quick, because we did see, tens of thousands of people jumping on this, like this was the find of a century. And hopefully they can look at it rationally and look at the source that it came from, look at the program that it showed up on, look at the science behind it, look at the evidence, and stand back and look at it, not from faith, but from a rational perspective.
Well, that's look, that's what I want. Let's bring it out. Let's let the officials look at it. The linguists, the archaeologists, right? Let's do that. I'm on for that. And I will take their assessment. I'll certainly read their assessment.
I'm for that. I'm with you. Bring
Yep,
it out.
I'm
Let the
signing up
experts
too.
examine it. Yep.
No, and
Yep.
I think that's the difference. Like when this came across my feed this morning, I think it was John Lundwall that actually sent it and said everyone's going, crazy on this. And I looked at it, and instead of saying, "Oh, geez," they discovered something that looks. I was like, "Okay, this is really interesting. Let's dig in. Let's look." I started looking at the comments, and a lot of the comments said things like, now we told you so, or now you'll find out, or you better watch out, to people who don't necessarily believe in the tradition of the Book of Mormon. And I thought, okay, they're jumping right there. Whereas when I shared this with a group of other scholars that I know, like lots of people, and not one person had that angle of, oh no, don't look in, this might be something. Everybody's like, let's dive right in and find out what this is. Let's all use our particular skill set. You've got a Dan McClellan, you've got a John Lundwall, you've got other people I sent it to, and let's find out what this is and what it means to us. So in that way, I'm very proud, because even if it did turn out to be something that's like, you know what, this might change things, that would be fine too. We wanted to find the truth, and that's what mattered.
And it took about 2 hours to find
No
most
less,
of this
I think,
information. Yeah. And of course, John dug into a few more things and listened to some more podcasts. So he spent a couple hours today putting this together, obviously.
Yeah.
But literally within the first 2 hours, we were going, oh boy, this has red lights going off everywhere with everyone. Hold on, something's not right here. So.
Yep. Because that's how we roll, right? That's how we roll here on Mormonish and with Dr. Lundwall. So anyway, thank you, everybody. Please comment. Are you even aware of these? Like, it's brand new. It just came out. I guess by the time this airs, it'd be 2 days ago. Have you gotten this information from faithful friends and family? Are they starting to pass this around as something that they consider very faith affirming? Please comment and let us know what your thoughts are on this and the whole concept of projecting onto the archaeological evidence. I just think this has been absolutely fascinating, and I thank everybody for hanging in with us. Please like and subscribe to Mormonish Podcast, and if you'd like to be made aware of when new episodes come out, you can hit the notification bell. If you would like to financially help support the podcast, we have links in the show notes to PayPal, Venmo, mormonishpodcast.org, and we really thank all the people that do help us out financially. It just means so much. And of course, we want to thank Dr. Lundwall again. He never disappoints when he comes on. Literally, you need your own show. We need to talk about this. I'm serious. I'm not kidding. And one more link I'd like to make everybody aware of in the show notes, and that is we have merch now. I know it's brand new. We've got, the kind of merch podcasts have. So if you're interested in showing your support for Mormonish, check out that link. And I think that's it for today. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Mormonish. We really appreciate our listeners and would love to hear from you if you have a story you'd like to share. You can email us at mormonishpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and on our website, mormonishpodcast.org. And don't forget to look for us on YouTube and like and subscribe. Keep joyful, everybody.